Good morning, everyone. It's my privilege today to
morning.
give you an update on the great pandemic. And of course, you all are intimately familiar, well, I hope not intimate, but familiar with the coronavirus and why it's called corona, because this crown around it. It's actually called officially the SARS-CoV-2 virus. It causes the disease known as COVID-19 in humans. Are you taking it seriously? You'd better, very seriously. And I meant to start today with a clip from Clint Eastwood's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But I had some technical difficulties. It was the Danish symphony playing the theme song. I'll do it some other day. Because the talk is organized somewhat like that theme. We'll start with the bad. And the bad is that the number of confirmed cases per million population throughout Europe has gone straight up. And of course, the leader is Italy, as we all know. Spain is very close. Spain has gone also in the same direction as every other country has gone on this curve. And the bad news is that the total number of deaths worldwide continues to climb. And as of March 31, it stood at 4,309. Another piece of bad news is that in the United States, we are following pretty much the same curve. Now, these curves are not all at the same scale, but they do follow pretty much the same pattern. For Spain, for Italy, never mind the slope, it's because the scale is different. And for the US, if you put them all together, they pretty much parallel the worldwide total deaths curve. So much for the bad. I think it's enough for the bad. Now, let's talk about what's useful. Transmission of coronaviruses occurs via respiratory droplets, and the origin is from sneezing and coughing. This is the simplest way that I have found in Facebook to explain this. It can't be explained any better. John, and John is sitting right here or standing, John got infected today. He will know in 14 days. John thinks he's okay. However, unwittingly, he will infect another 10 people. They will know in 14 days. Those 10 think they are okay. They will go out and party. They will infect 100 people. They will know in 14 days. Stay at home. No one knows who is infected. No one. And what happens is that John coughs or sneezes, and all of these droplets go out into the air, and those around him inhale those, and they go into the nasopharynx, trachea, the bronchi, into the lungs, and end up in the alveoli, the little sacs within our lungs where critical gas exchange happens, where we get oxygen into our blood. Now, if those are larger, those droplets are larger than a certain size, they can be blocked by a surgical mask. However, if they're smaller, then they can only be blocked by an N95 filter. We'll come back to that in a minute. Just to show you again, the trachea going into the lungs and all the way down to the smallest part of the lung, but the critical part of the lung, those alveoli, those little sacs where gas exchange occurs, where we oxygenate our blood, and as you see, they are full of the virus. The virus is small enough to get in there and do their bad work. Meanwhile, inside the refrigerator, I took this picture myself inside my freezer. The Corona beer is standing on the side, standing quite far away from the rest of the things in the freezer or the refrigerator, and they are wearing this N95 mask. That drives two messages. Distance, keep your distance, and when in contact with others, do wear a mask. The virus, in 20 to 40% of those who test positive are asymptomatic but contagious. 20 to 40% of those who test positive are asymptomatic but contagious. Some of them will go on to develop symptoms, but some, for reasons that we don't know, will never have symptoms. They just get the virus, they have the infection, they become immunologically protected, they develop antibodies, and they are okay. And those are the dangerous ones, because for a while they are infective, they are infectious. You can get contagion from them, and you don't know it because they have no symptoms whatsoever. So anyone you meet could transfer virus to you. This is why you have to keep your distance. This is why when in public shopping, going to the drugstore, you need to wear a mask. Keep your distance, wear a mask. Now there are several kinds of masks, and they are categorized in different ways, but I'm going to use levels right now. This mask here is very fashionable. They come in different colors and different patterns. Many of them are homemade, or they are made by a fashion designer. And they are probably what's called level 1. They are the worst in terms of protection. But you do look cool when you wear them. Now, level 2 is this mask that we call a surgical mask. In fact, some of them are level 3. That means that they are able to filter out more particles than this one can. And the best one is the N95 respirator mask that everyone has been hearing about. Many of those are manufactured by 3M. However, there are many other companies besides 3M that manufacture those N95 masks. And here's the close-up of the mask. And on the side, you see that it says N95. This one happens to be made by 3M. Now, the N95 means that it's NIOSH certified. It's not the brand. The brand is 3M 8210 Plus. This is a certification. The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH, provides testing, approval, and certification program assuring respirators used in the workplace meet federal standards. It's a federal institution. It's not 3M. It's not any other commercial brand. The N95 designation means that the respirator, when carefully tested, blocks at least 95% of very small particles. Now, some people get very innovative, and this is how car guys deal with COVID-19. They can't even spell COVID, but they use that car filter. Okay, time to go to the good. The good news is that we in the USA are so creative that everyone in research, everyone in laboratory and clinical research is dedicating their time to find medicines that will address this virus, this critical situation that we're in. A lot of antivirals are being developed, and many of them are in clinical trials, some of them in phase 3. This is a partial list of the ones that are being developed, the name of the product, and the company developing them. Antibodies. Antibodies are a likely weapon to use against this target, the target being the virus. And again, a number of antibodies being developed. We are also starting to see the use of convalescent plasma, namely a person who has had the virus, got infected, developed symptoms, became immune, recovered, but has antibodies and other substances and cells in his blood that are protective, that provide immunity against the virus. So you can take that person's plasma and give it to a patient, and that patient will be able to fight the virus because there are antibodies present in the plasma. Now, you can also give blood. For example, you take the blood of a person who has had and has successfully combated the virus, and you give it to a patient who's currently sick. And that will also work. Or you could give packed cells. Why? Because whole blood contains not only red cells, but contains also white cells that fight infection, antibodies to fight infection, and other substances that are present in convalescent whole blood that will help that patient fight the virus. Now, if you give packed cells, not plasma, just the packed cells, you are still giving red cells and white cells, but not the antibodies. Vaccines. We're very focused on vaccines, okay? Now remember, once you develop the virus, once you develop the disease, that vaccine will help for future infections. But the one that you currently have, you have, and that's it. So the vaccines work only before you get infected. And the vaccine does not work until about 7 days, when most people have developed about 50% of their antibody complement. And then at 14 days after vaccination, you're fully protected, okay? So it takes a while for that vaccine to take hold. And this is true of most vaccines. A lot of vaccines are being developed, some of them right here in San Diego. There are 2 companies doing this in San Diego. Inovio is one of them, and Sorrento Therapeutics, another one. I think there's a third that I'm missing in the list, but at least those 2, and they're fairly far ahead. Inovio intends to get into clinical trials within this month, probably, phase 1. Johnson & Johnson is also getting involved, but they are far behind, and it will probably be a year before we see them into clinical trials. So our San Diego companies are going to be faster. The smaller companies are more agile than the large companies. There's a lot of other medications, some of them already approved, that are either even being used as we speak or being evaluated. And one that has had a lot of press is hydroxychloroquine, brand name Plaquenil, in combination with the antibiotic that we know as the Z-Pak, azithromycin. It's an antibiotic derivative of erythromycin that many of us have used for upper respiratory tract infections. So that's being evaluated. And then a number of others are also being evaluated, including, as I mentioned, the convalescent plasma or whole blood transfusions. Prevention, very important. It's the best that we can do right now. Follow all precautionary measures, stay at home as much as possible. Don't take any medications or supplements other than your daily meds. For heaven's sakes, people, do not take any supplements, medications that you have not been prescribed. Unknowingly, you may be taking something that counteracts another medication you're taking, that negates its activity, or you may be taking 2 things that put together can be toxic. So do not take anything that has not been prescribed to you. Be informed, not scared. Follow recommendations. Apply your common sense. Be prudent, stay healthy. We will survive. This too will pass. Thank you.
Wow, that was fantastic.